Okay, a brand new discovery that just came in. Dan Franco sent me some information, some pictures, some videos, and so forth, and we discussed, had a couple of phone calls back and forth on this particular area that he found. Somehow he came across this. I don't know. I'm not going to get into the details of this, but it's somewhere way out in the middle of nowhere. And he only had a few minutes to take some pictures before it got dark. So at that point, I got involved. We started talking, we started looking, and these pictures are absolutely unbelievable. Absolutely blew my mind. And he said, and I hope it's true, and I believe him because he certainly was sure of himself. He said there was at least hundreds of these things, and maybe over 1,000. Now, so of course, I'm a loudmouth. Look at this. Well, anyway, Jody, who is a fabulous researcher, always finds something. This morning she pops in with, hey, look at this Florentine Codex. These creatures in these codex have a very similar look, apparently. She's been working on this a couple hours, this video, so it's not something you can do in a minute or two. So now, so I'm just starting into it now. But I know when she sends me something, I know it's going to be good. So I'm going to, as we go through this, it says there's 2,000 paintings. She says they're in there with very similar look to what Dan found, and it's just astounding stuff. And this is a Florentine Codex. Nobody's really looked into this apparently that well, and these people are looking into it now. So, I'm just doing the kind of research I do. Everybody's, oh, you're an armchair researcher. Well, maybe that's true, but I have plenty of my own stuff, and I've done a lot of my own work. So now I have to put the pieces together because everybody's got pieces, and they're all in pieces. I'm trying to figure out what this all means as one big piece. It's just so fragmented. I mean, it's just like you threw a 1,000 buckets of paint at a wall, and then you say, okay, let's figure out all these different colors. I mean, it's just very, very, very difficult. And there's so many people that have so many pieces, and they have been crushed and laughed at. And now they're coming to me because I'm the guy that just has got a loudmouth, and I've been screaming about this stuff. And they figure, well, I'll just throw it at this guy, let him throw it out there and see what happens. But it's fabulous because it's all starting to congeal. Now you can either walk away and laugh, and some are doing that. And I find the most scholarly minds feel that's, well, let me just show you something. I mean, what further proof do you need? I've already been assaulted by every academic that has ever responded. And he went, Daniel James Helm, had found an alligator fossil or some form of a reptile. And I will verify that he's almost certainly correct. But he wanted to be certain. I would too, which I did, and I had my stuff DNA tested, and at that time they allowed it. Now, listen to this. This is a quote from him. He took it to these two geologists, and he said, it definitely looks like an alligator, but we're pretty sure it's not, they said. I quote, let's test it, then to rule it out, I'll pay. They responded that it would it would be unethical for them to take my money because they were almost sure. I said, I'd like to have it tested. They refused. Now he says, driver, can you post or respond if you are seeing this? Will Clyde, a paleontologist for the University of New Hampshire, looked at a photo via email where I was requesting to take it down to have it tested. Told me, don't bother, it's a rock. Before my specimen was clean, I responded, I would just like to have it confirmed. Either way, I'll pay for the testing. I'll donate the specimen and then you can study it. He never responded either way. Now, I had the same business go on. We had well, let me show you this. Now, here's another example. I got involved with Jim Burchell, Arlie Caudle found this head in rural Kentucky in a mud bank. Jim Burchell had this examined at all kinds of places, had all kinds of information on it, and everybody laughed at him, and the same stuff that happens to all of us now. So, ends up, Jim also took care of ancient Indian artifacts, and Scott Walter gets a hold of him and says, I want to see the Indian artifacts. And and Jim says, I'd like you to look at the head. Well, Scott Walter gets on TV and says, oh, it's just a sandstone head. He was kind. He said, well, I don't want to be unkind, but it's just a sandstone head. You really don't know what you're doing, my friend. So I got a hold of Scott Walter, and he says, oh, I don't have to explain anything to you. Because I said, this is absolutely factual, my friend. And he did the same thing that all the other people do. Oh, I don't have to explain anything to you. I'm a genius, and you're nothing. So, but I understand this stuff in every single detail. So Jim wanted to have a CAT scan, and I said, yeah, absolutely, it's real. They ended up taking it to the University of Texas. Yale told me that you should have the CAT scan if you're really this sure and do this and do that, which we did. We did everything they said. Took it down to the University of Texas, had a CAT scan, and they were the most arrogant, absolutely unbelievably arrogant people I've ever met in my entire life. I responded. I had one single question about what the humidity would create in the CAT scan. They didn't want a CAT scan. I really forced it, and it came to push to shove, and then they would not answer one single question. I slaughtered them with emails, and I ended up getting a call from police and from lawyers saying, back off, get away from this, leave this thing alone, don't bother these people, you're being threatened. So I had to back off, because how am I going to fight that? But this is the kind of stuff that happens. This is not right, and it's got to stop. All right, now that I'm on this kick, I'm going to keep going. This I put up, this was my old channel, Mud Fossils, when I first started. I had to go up here and scream, you people are being foolish, you're not listening, this is reality. 275 views. And, I was crushed in this channel, so I had to get rid of this channel. That's the beginning of 2016. So that's like 3.5 years ago. Now, 275 views, that's obviously not a big deal. Now let me show you what happened after I had everything. This was after I even had a DNA proven. This was just after I had a DNA tested. And here's what the lab had to say about the DNA tests. All right, now this was like 6 months earlier. And this was after months of doing these tests. Now this is the lab, and I just put it on, I let it roll my screen, some pictures as I was going along. These are all mud fossil pictures as I'm going along. They don't mean anything, it's just that it had nothing to go on my screen. So here goes. Listen to what he had to say. Now this was back then. Now I can't get anybody, he won't respond to me now, I don't know why, but I have my suspicions. Here, listen. Certain amount, you can only get a certain amount of base pairs normally?
Right, usually 100 to 200 tops, because the DNA is so fragmented because of just the degradation, with all the, the years and, wear and tear and things like that.
Yeah.
But I was able to, locate these primers that were in that paper that this group had success with, and that seemed like the best option. And they, are a mitochondrial DNA primer that will essentially amplify all types of vertebrates, so not just human, but any kind of vertebrate life form. And so they were sort of a universal type of fit for these samples, because we don't know obviously what the samples consist of. So the sequence that came back, and it was roughly for each of these fragments about 100 base pairs. Matched them up in the database, and they matched with the human mitochondrial. There's two regions of the mitochondria. One is called the D, like the letter D is in dog, the D loop, and then the other one I believe is for cytochrome B gene. The mitochondria has several different genes that it consists of, but these primers were specific for those areas of the mitochondrial genome. So so I considering where we, started a couple months ago, that's, those are nice results to have.
Yeah, that's kind of amazing.
The PCR and now the DNA sequencing, so.
Wow. And how refined down is this? I mean, it's in the human genome family, meaning it's not a monkey or a primate. I mean, it's a primate, but how refined into
Right, exactly. Yeah, no, in the database it's showing, for that region of sequence that I attained for these fragments, that they match up with, 100% identity to, the human mitochondrial genome. Again, the D loop, and I believe the other region was cytochrome B. I'm not 100%.
By the way, I just want to kick in here. That I made that. That is mud fossils that I made. I've done all this. I've done all the work, the chemistry. This was after 6 months to a year, maybe around in that area. That's the tendon, white area, and this is what will turn into the mud fossils.
I'm sure I'd have to double check my notes, but I know the one was the D loop region.
Was there a substantial amount of DNA? I mean, was it something that you pretty much certain it wasn't contamination or something? That's my point.
Yeah, I've run the negative controls all along, and I haven't had anything. The idea with negative controls is you want those to always be blank, to see nothing in there, and so the negative controls have, not shown any amplification, so which is again what you want. So confident that what we're seeing is not any type of contamination from handling or anything like that. So the amount of DNA that was in the extractions too was, for ancient DNA, it was relatively substantial.
Now I want to make a mention of this. It's relatively substantial because I took that sample in complete sterile conditions out from the arterial areas in the mud fossils that I was extracting it from. Because I know where these things are. There was no possibility of contamination. They were drilled deeply after being cleaned. The surface was absolutely clean. Jacket around it, the mask, the gloves, the whole 9 yards. So, and this, by the way, this is a bone ball, and that's the muscle around that bone ball, and that is from a 36-inch wide hand that was also DNA certified.
So, I don't
That's
think that
the
there was any
bone
kind
ball.
of contamination with anything.
Certain amount, you can only get a certain amount of base pairs normally. All right, so you've seen what I had to show, and these texts are fabulous, and they can read the text. This is great, but when you have actual specimens like we have, I mean, why not look at that? Why not even consider that? That's my problem. And this is for many years now. This is not just a few years, and Yale still refuses to look at it. They keep saying, "Oh, there's nothing there, nothing there." Now, why would they do that? Why would they not examine that? Why does no one? And I know from overseas too. People from overseas, they're telling me the same thing. Can't get anybody to test this stuff. They refuse. And they go, we can't get into any kind of authentication issues. We don't want an authentication issue. If you are a certified lab that does DNA testing, we want to know the stuff that we submitted. Maybe it's our own blood. Who cares? You just say what we gave you, and you don't have to say what it is. You just say this was the samples submitted, and this is the results. Case closed. That's all we're asking for. If we showed where that stuff was extracted from and a chain of custody, then I would think that you should be, duty bound to do what you say you do. This is not right. This is a crushing of information, and it's happened to me, and I know it's happened to everyone that's come forward with stuff. I mean, it's never changed. Herodotus was called the father of all lies. 450 BC, something like 450 BC. He wrote one of the first history books, and he's called the father of history. But his own time, when he's walking around the street, they're calling him the father of all lies. It's just the human mind is so is so stale. It's very hard for me to even deal with it. I mean, it's a very, very difficult position that I am in. And everybody that has any yearning for truth and reality and to believe what they see and not just to whistle in the woods. All right, so I'm going to leave it at that for this one today. So I see I'm the rogue researcher. I go off on these things and I cannot help myself because I see so much so wrong for so long. Now, we're going to go back into this, but that'll be another one.